Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the honorable members of the committee for giving me your time this afternoon. 30 months have passed since the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps IRGC of Iran committed a heinous crime over the skies of Tehran by shooting down Ukraine international flight PS-752. Canada's tepid and cautious approach to pursuing justice against the government of Iran has left many of the families of the victims and many Canadians in a state of despair. 2.5 years after this crime was committed, the most fundamental facts surrounding this crime remain shrouded in mystery. Knowledgeable observers have every reason to believe that the shooting of the missiles at the plane was intentional. In a sense, the Iranian government used the 177 passengers and crew as human shields. We can all agree that over the course of the past 2.5 years, the Iranian regime has refused to provide essential facts to investigators. Instead, it has systematically lied and misled to successfully impede the emergence of the factual matrix that led to this crime. Apart from deliberately obfuscating, the Iranian government and the IRGC have subjected relatives of the victims to crushing psychological pressure. As publicly noted by the Prime Minister's Special Advisor, the Honorable Ralph Goodell, the report provided by the Islamic Republic was shambolic and riddled with lies. Similarly, Ms. Calamar, a former UN Special Rapporteur, has publicly stated that the narrative offered by the Islamic Republic is merely designed to confuse and bewilder. Allow me to apprise you of the travesty of justice the families of the victims who are in Iran have faced in that country. The Iranian regime has subjected families in Iran to extreme psychological pressure and physical abuse. A report published by Human Rights Watch in May 2021 references physical torture, and I can assure you that the practice has been widespread. Family members in Iran have been subjected to repeated interrogations. Some family members were barred from the courtroom, while the entire proceedings were conducted under strict security conditions designed to intimidate. Finally, the show trials, orchestrated by the military courts of Tehran, were abandoned after challenges were raised by the families in Iran. Among other such examples, the so-called Islamic Human Rights Commission of Iran has repeatedly harassed families with phone calls and personal visits in an attempt to force them to accept financial compensation or to compel them to sign waivers. According to these waivers, families are expected to waive all their rights and to forego any legal options that may allow them to pursue legal remedies. Fortunately, a majority of the families have rejected such offers. I should also emphasize that the families of the Afghan passengers who reside in Iran have also been subjected to unimaginable pressures. More recently, in March, when some family members attended a rally against Russia's invasion of Ukraine in Tehran, one of the victims' fathers was brutally beaten, while a mother was dragged on the ground by her hair as she was taken to the local police station. Another one of the victims' fathers was slapped in the face. Intimidation extends to relatives of the victims here in Canada as well. Yet, after 30 months, the Iranian government's thuggish behavior and chicanery remains unchecked. None of the 5 governments that lost their citizens in the tragedy have referred the PS-752 file to the International Criminal Court. The RCMP refuses to open a domestic criminal investigation. Moreover, there is no confirmation as to when the file be referred to the ICAO Council or the International Court of Justice. Similarly, the families demand to include the IRGC on the list of terrorist organizations in Canada or to impose Magnitsky sanctions have fallen on deaf ears. It is downright absurd and offensive that the United States has listed many more IRGC commanders on its sanctions list than Canada has. Instead, we were recently shocked to hear that the Islamic Republic soccer team had been invited to Canada under the guise of a friendly match. This ill-advised plan was fortunately cancelled thanks to the overwhelming support of Canadians. The Canadian government's failure to take concrete steps in a timely fashion has emboldened the criminal government of Iran and the IRGC. Insofar as the Iranian government is concerned, it has succeeded in not being held to account for this horrific crime. In the face of all the grief, disappointment, and despair, the Association of the Families of Flight PS-752 victims remain steadfast in their commitment to unveil the truth and bring the real perpetrators of this heinous crime to justice. Let the PS-752 and recent Russian atrocities in Ukraine serve as a sober reminder that appeasement with tyrants will only result in more suffering. True justice is not negotiable. We will never forget, nor shall we ever forgive. Thank you for your time, and I welcome your questions.